Hi everyone, it's Miss Savannah. I wanted to do a quick lesson on wings for you guys. I know wings are sometimes a super difficult movement that we have to do in tap, and sometimes they take a long time to get them, so people tend to get really frustrated and want to give up on getting those wings. So over this time off, if wings are one of those things that we need a little bit of extra practice on, hopefully this video will help. So we are going to start with our standard two-footed single wing. So the biggest problem and the biggest mistake that I see dancers most often making with wings is traveling backwards. Okay, so we want to make sure that in our wing we are remaining in place and that we are not traveling backwards. What's happening is if we're traveling backwards with our wings, we're doing more of a hybrid between a wing and a pullback. So we're not really getting that brush back in. We're not really doing that wing motion. So a good test to see if you're truly doing those wings correctly or not is to see if you can stay in the same place and execute multiple wings in a row. Okay, so for our standard wing, this motion comes from the release off the floor and then the retract to pull it back in. So it's a push-pull. And the reason that it differs from a pullback is because a pullback, we're getting that elevation first. So we're not coming from the floor. And with that wing, we're pushing through the floor. So what I always tell my students is that we gotta think of it like we think of a dégagé in ballet. We're disengaging that foot from the floor and we're using that momentum. We're pushing through our hip, pushing that foot off the floor. And then the release is releasing that ankle. Because it's got to stay super loose. That's the other thing with wings. The most important thing probably is that we have to keep our ankles super loose and relaxed. The next thing is that we got to make sure that we're keeping those heels off the floor. If we have that heel down on the floor and a flat foot when we release for the wing, we get this release in our ankle right there. And if we don't have our ankles really stretched, it's really easy to tweak that ankle or even occasionally get a little bit of a sprain. So we always want to make sure that we're protecting those ankles, getting in that strong forced arch. That push through the floor is what's gonna show you that kind of, it almost looks like a break. It looks like you're going on the side of your foot, but truly, you're really not. It's just that push off the floor and that looseness of your ankle that makes it look like your ankle's doing that break. Okay, so we're gonna start jumping into forced arch. We're gonna push off of the floor, and then that second sound is going to be the brush back in together. This is where dancers, a lot of times, will bring it back like a pullback. But again, we want to do that same brushing motion that you're used to with a pullback, but we want to brush those feet in towards each other. Okay, so once we release that foot from the floor, we're snapping those ankles right back together. Imagine that you've got a resist-band around your ankles. It snaps back together, okay? And then that third sound is just our landing. So we're listening for those three sounds in our standard regular wing, apart from the jump, because you can just plie to prep into it. We're sweeping, releasing, brushing, and landing, okay? So a good way to break this down is to start here in this forced arch, in that plie, push through both feet, and right out from your hips, release, okay? Now from there, we're gonna rise up off of the floor, lift those toes, get that elevation first, and then snap those feet back together. So again, we're releasing, loose ankles, jump up, retract. Okay, so if we can get those two motions back to back, and we're getting both of those sounds and keeping those ankles loose, then we'll be able to put that together into a wing. So again, we are jumping to put that together, and then we just do that brush once those feet are already out elevated away from us. Again. Okay, so that's a standard wing. Now, moving on to doubles or syncopated wings, some people call them staggered wings. We want to make sure that we are leading with the foot that we are on the entire time. So a lot of dancers think that we can only do this on the right foot. You can do everything on the left foot that you can do on the right. And we always want to make sure that we are doing everything on the left foot that we are doing on the right foot. So that goes for these wings as well. So when we are on the right foot, when ball changing, I'll allow you to ball change into this because it helps you get that feeling of my right foot's leading, my right foot's going first. So we're doing the exact same motion of our single wing, but we are separating everything out So all together, we want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sounds. Okay, so we are just ball changing into it, so we don't have to count those. Okay, so doing the exact same motion, that release, retract. We're just letting that right foot come a little bit ahead of our left foot. So one thing we want to make sure we're doing is not putting all of our weight on this right foot so that our left foot's loose here. If we don't have any weight on our left foot, then we don't have any weight to push through the foot, which again, if you remember, is that first sound. So we want to make sure that our weight is even as we take off, okay? So that's the double on the right foot. Now on the left foot, same idea. This one takes a little bit more practice, especially if you are used to doing the right foot exclusively. So we want to make sure that we're doing that left foot, ball change into it, left, right. And again, same idea, just separating, letting that left foot lead. A lot of times it's the motion of that just takes a little bit of getting used to. Left foot doesn't like to lead, so we got to make sure that we just continue. It's just practicing that motion, getting that muscle memory. That's all there is to it. So again, separating, left, right, left, right, left, right. That is syncopated wings. Now next, we're going to move on to one-footed wings. Now these guys are the most dangerous if you are not on a solid forced arch. That's why I really stress this to you guys all the time, that we have to strengthen our forced arch position. We still have a lot of work to do, so I hope you guys are working on this at home. Please do, because it's going to be a little bit, it's going to be some hard work when we come back if we have been sitting on our bum the whole time and not working on our, or not building those muscles or not retaining those muscles. So again, working on that strong forced arch. If you take off with your heel on the ground, it is very, very likely that you will twist your ankle and it will hurt, okay? So we want to make sure that we jump into forced arch. If we jump into this, it will make it a little bit more easy because we have a little bit more momentum coming off the ground. If we're just here, now I want you guys to be able to go from just this forced arch, just this plie, because that takes the most momentum coming from your plie. But as we're starting to learn these and we're trying to hit these a little bit more consistently or hit one for the first time, I allow you guys to jump into them to get that like forward progress momentum. So again, we're doing the same exact motion that we've done from the beginning, but we are just going on one foot. So just our one foot alone is doing the release, retract. Now the next most important thing is that this has to stay super small. If we're trying to make this great big giant motion, it's just not going to happen. We're probably going to end up falling on our face. So we want to make sure that we are making this a small motion, jumping in, really, really small, right there underneath you. Same thing on the left foot. Always right and left. Make sure we're down one-sided. Now, once we have that, jumping into it, I want you guys to practice just going from plie, because just this alone, that balance in forced arch, is super important and super beneficial. So if we can balance here, and then push off the floor and still land that wing, and then from there, another reason that that's good for you is because you're very rarely doing just one wing. A lot of times we want to do them in sequence. We want to do more than one in a row, and if you have to jump into it every time, it gets really taxing. So we want to make sure that we're able to go from plie, and that we're also recovering and landing in a good way. Again, in that plie, and not letting that knee stick and be really, a little bit too stiff, okay? So we want to be able to jump once and do multiple wings. All right, lastly, the last wing for this lesson is going to be a switching wing. This motion can get really difficult sometimes, but really you're just doing a one-footed wing with one less sound in it. So what everybody kind of wants to do is pull this foot directly back, but what we want to make sure we're doing is imagine hitting a target out in front of you, kind of to the side, to this diagonal, sort of like you would in bringing your foot to taut in second position. So we want to hit that target, pushing off the floor before we retract that foot. So again, that release, retract motion, pushing off the floor, and then pulling it back to switch. Again, not a huge motion. Also make sure you're not kicking too far back because you will have to recover and do something else with this foot, okay? So we want to make sure that we're keeping it small. So I want you guys to think about this being the motion, like almost bicycling those knees out rather than that, okay? So we want to make sure, excuse me, I'll do this from the side so you can kind of see where my foot is going in between. We're picking it up we're lifting our knee rather than kicking our foot back, much like a lot of different things in tap. Always lifting those knees. All right, that's our wing lesson for the day. Work on those wings at home, you guys, and send me videos of your progress. And of course, let me know if you have any questions.